Good morning. Welcome to the Childcare Professional Development as a Marketing and Recruiting Tool. My name is Heidi Louisi. I am the moderator for today's session, along with your presenter, Steve Stuckey. We appreciate you joining us for the CypherWorx K-12 online training program, Childcare Professional Development as a Marketing and Recruiting Tool. Our intent is to provide you with information you will find beneficial. To allow you to make the most out of your session today, I'd like to give you a quick tour of the Zoom webinar control panel. The panel will look like the one on your screen. Your microphone will be muted, but we want you to feel free to raise your hand or ask questions in the chat during the presentation. I will constantly monitor both areas to alert Steve and make him aware of any questions that come in. Now I will hand it over to Steve.
Thank you, Heidi, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. And welcome to today's session on professional development as a marketing tool. My name is Steve, and I'll be sharing some great information today that hopefully you'll find very useful. My journey started out, hate to say, several decades ago, working with one of the top 100 training companies in the United States. And that's where I got my introduction to adult education. And so working with programs around the country for the last 10 plus years, working with CypherWorx, I've been able to gain a lot of great information, and hopefully we'll share some of that with you here today. As I mentioned, for the past 6 years, all my time has been really dedicated to working with after-school and early childcare programs around the country. And so I'm going to share some of these things with you today. But one of the things that I've observed over the years with all of these programs, the most successful programs are really good at being able to communicate what they're doing. They have a very robust training program that supports employees, meets them where they're at, and they also talk a lot about it. And so those are some of the things and some of the highlights that we'll share with you today. And really, it's about creating that culture of training and developing and always moving forward and looking at areas where we can improve. And of course, you've got some wonderful tools here with CypherWorx to really get into the science of learning. So let's go ahead and get rolling with today's topic. One of the things that I think is important too, when you think about marketing, and when I think about marketing to organizations, is who are we really talking to or talking about in terms of marketing and promoting our training and really making this that culture. You might be talking to schools, you might be talking to parents, prospective employees, right? So organizations across the country are really having a very tough time recruiting and maintaining talent. And so we're going to provide you with some data here today to share with that. And I think it's really important to be prepared with that data. So I encourage you to take screenshots. I also encourage you to put your name in the chat. If you want to put your information in the chat, I'm happy to send you the slide deck and images after today's conversation. And by the way, you can always go back and access the recorded session here at the link in the lower left-hand corner. So I think, again, it's important to communicate the data and the science and the depth and the breadth of your training program, again, to all of those stakeholders, whether it's parents, prospective employees, your current employees, to address these challenges that we all face. And the great thing is that we've seen many examples of how successful this has been. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll talk about, first of all, trends that we see in talent development. And this information actually comes from LinkedIn. So LinkedIn surveys about 4,000 individuals every year. And what they're looking for is trends in talent development so that they can look for future and obviously trends. So the makeup of this polling, just so you know, is it's approximately 55% employees. So it's very employee heavy. It's about 30% talent development professionals, 5% executives, and 10% people managers. And what they found overall is that a number of interesting things you can read on the screen here right now. Number one is to soften the impact of automation. So the number one priority for all of those groups really is training on soft skills. So obviously it's a need, people want it, organizations want it, executives rate it as extremely high. So the ability to train on soft skills is important and growing for all of these groups. Number two is being able to balance today's challenges with tomorrow's opportunities. And this is an interesting one, just in the fact that what they're looking at is because of the short shelf life of skills and tightening labor market, this is really giving rise to a significant gap. So there's even more skill gaps that they're finding, partly because of all of the things that are changing, right? So if we were changing in a changing and ever-growing environment 4 years ago, that sense of change and notion of change is continuing. So businesses are fighting to stay ahead of the curve, trying to hold on to their best talent and struggling to fill in some of those key positions. So individuals are much more conscious too of staying relevant in the age of automation. So now the spotlight is on the talent development function. These are the organization leaders that are creating learning opportunities to really better enable an employee growth and achievement. And so these talent developers have the ability to guide their organizations to success in tomorrow's labor market, but of course they can't do it alone. So the research shows that today's talent developers being asked to balance competing demands from executives, managers, and employees. They have to play a critical role in shaping the future workforce strategy and at the same time deliver hyper-relevant content to support employee needs of today. So they're trying to create the training for today and also for tomorrow. And at the same time, they have to cater this to multi-generational workforce with varied learning preferences. So to balance these competing demands, talent development leaders today have to embrace the role of relationship builder, cultivating the relationships that are really the backbone of a learning culture that thrives in a workforce of constant change. So again, you can see number three here, the rise of digital is transforming talent development. So talent developers are depending on online learning solutions to really make sure that they are meeting all of the different needs of the adult learners. So looking at the fact that we've got a multi-generational workforce, and so we have to cater to those that are maybe fresh out of school, that have also in other groups that have had maybe 10, 20, even 30 years of experience or more. And so use of these digital education tools or ed tech tools are really increasing. Obviously, COVID had an effect on that, but there's no turning back. It's definitely, the data supports that all of this is here to stay. You'll see also in number four, if employees can't find time to learn, we want to reduce the frictions, means that learners want to be able to have access to the training where they're at. For instance, in the classroom, on the platforms that they're used to using, whether it's cell phones, tablets, PCs, what have you, that training needs to be accessible, it needs to be on time, it needs to meet me where I'm at. And then finally, number five, amplify your manager relationships. One of the things that we found is critical is making sure that obviously first step is having executive buy-in of your training and training program, but also making sure that your managers are involved. And we'll talk about that relationship here shortly. So being able to soften the, some of these trends are softening that impact of automation to make it easier to train on soft skills, right? So this means to deliver soft skills training. CypherWorx obviously has a whole catalog of soft skills training. And so you're prepared for that trend, considering the needs of today and tomorrow. So CypherWorx has over 2,000 hours of training to share. And this is obviously something to be able to share, which is that depth and breadth of content, all that you're doing to provide these training and resources. And obviously employees want more self-directed and online learning options. So learners have the ability to access their courses in a number of different ways, including mobile, and also they get to take charge of their own experience, right? So they get to choose their catalog from the courses, and obviously you have the ability to assign or prescribe those courses and create learning paths and other ed tech tools that are available at your fingertips. And of course, these things need to be communicated to all those different audiences that we're talking about. There's a lot of effort that you're putting through to make sure that you're meeting all of the needs of all of the different audiences that you might have. So again, one of the things that is interesting about number 5 here, amplifying your manager relationships. And part of this has to do with manager relationships with the employees. How much time are the managers talking about the training? Are they offering these trainings? Are they assigning trainings to their employees? And we're going to see some interesting relationships with that here shortly. The nice thing is that CypherWorx recognizes that the managers need training as well, if not maybe more so, right? So it is a journey, right? That's not a destination. Unfortunately, you'll find in the catalog, if you haven't already, that the CypherWorx catalog offers many management trainings as well. All right, so let's take a look again at some more data from this survey. So there's some great information here that we can get out of this. So you'll see up here, if you can take a look in the light blue, is how the talent developers rated each of these areas. Dark blue is people managers, orange is executives. And then they looked at each of these areas. Number 1 is leadership, 2 is communication, 3 is collaboration, and then finally role-specific skills. I'll look at this as, these are the immediate skills that I need on the job right now. But obviously, if you look at leadership and communication, those are some of the skills that you're developing for the future, preparing you to be able to react to changes and so forth. So it's interesting to see where the different groups are actually rating what's important. And you'll see a fairly significant difference here. So if you look, for example, at role-specific skills, talent developers, right, the training administrators, folks who are actually creating the training, are really rating that much higher than executives. Executives are looking at this and realizing that, we really need to be also planning for the future. So the research shows that you need to balance today's challenges with tomorrow's opportunities, and having an emphasis on soft skills so that employees can adapt to changing environments, right? We're all become painfully used to all of this change that's happened over the last several years. And it seems like that's going to continue. So we want to prepare employees so that they can adapt to changing environments, changing technology, changing systems. And it's really interesting to see. I'm happen to be in the position where I have a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old. So my kids are school age, and being able to see the changes and how, all of the issues and things that they're dealing with that I didn't have to when I was going through the same time period in my life. So we need to be prepared for that, and we need to be prepared for the future. So it's interesting as the shelf life of some of these skills shrink, business leaders worry that talent developers are actually focused on training for today's skill demands at the expense of preventing tomorrow's skill gaps. So the research shows that in 2018, talent developers are really prioritizing the employee development needs of today. And while that's essential, executives and people managers are looking at talent developers to do more, specifically to increase the talent developers' focus on identifying industry trends to prevent those internal skill gaps in the future. So if you look at the second panel here, the question asks, what do you believe are the most important areas of focus for learning and development in 2018? Obviously, the highest rated piece here is how to train for soft skills. And then secondly, identifying those trends to prevent those future skill gaps. You'll see that in the orange, the executives are rating that extremely high. And then finally, understanding the impact of technology and so on. So each group in the survey, from executives to managers to talent developers, identified this training for soft skills as the #1 priority for talent development. In the age of automation, maintaining technical fluency across roles, of course, is critical, but the pace of change is fueling demand for adaptable, critical thinkers, communicators, and leaders. And as technology accelerates, soft skills are in high demand to help fuel both people and also business growth. All right, so as we continue looking at this information, this data from the LinkedIn survey, you'll see that the rise of digital is transforming talent development. So you can see on the screen, 68% of employees prefer to learn at work. 58% of employees prefer to learn at their own pace. 49% of employees prefer to learn at the point of need. So while some of these items may be surprising to you, some may not. But talent developers obviously know that they need to rely on these digital learning solutions to cater to each of these various needs, right? I may want to learn at work, may want to learn at home, but clearly they want to learn obviously at their own pace. They want to be able to have that training meet them where they're at. So a recent Association for Training and Development report found that 90% of companies offer digital learning today. So your process for providing this training, your dedication to employee development really should be part of your marketing and your messaging for the trends that you're taking advantage of. This is data that supports all the work that you're putting into providing professional development opportunities. And again, those soft skills and so forth, you're meeting folks where they are needing and what they want. So this shows that the talent developers spend more on online learning solutions than ever before. So not only to deliver this content, but also to measure the learning success. And the online content should work equally as well on all devices, from laptops to phones, so employees can easily access the content at home, at work, right at the point of training need. And each group in the survey identified getting employees to make time for learning as one of the #1 challenges facing talent development in 2018. Yet 94% of employees say that they would stay at a company longer if it invested in their career development. So again, 90% of companies are offering this digital training or offering some type of digital learning. But one of the challenges that everyone has rated as #1 is getting employees to make that time for learning. And I find that's interesting because 94% is a large percentage of employees said that they would stay with a company longer if it invested in their career development. So that is obviously something that needs to be shouted from the rooftops. It may be obvious to some people, but it's obviously proven successful. This is a great opportunity for you to market and share those statistics. So the modern organization really needs to meet learners where they already are, aligning those development opportunities with employee aspirations and engaging them through platforms where they're already spending their time. All right, so this slide is an increase or continuation here on the trends in talent development. Increased manager involvement. So this is the #2 challenge that obviously you're prepared to address, working with your online platform with CypherWorx. As the #2 item is the challenge, is increased manager involvement. So what would the potential effect be if managers were proactively involved in employee training and development? Well, 56% of employees say that they would spend more time learning if their manager directed them to complete a specific course in order to gain or improve their skills. So talent developers are naming increased manager involvement as the new #2 challenge. Getting managers more involved in the employee learning is really, it's not the only way to see increased learner engagement, but the data shows that improvement here are likely to make a significant impact. So the takeaway here is amplify your manager relationships with employees. If you have an established culture of learning and progress, you're talking about it, your managers are taking an active role, believe me, people will know. And of course, this is something to shout from the rooftops. The talent developers say that training for soft skills is really their key focus. Now, in the age of automation, adaptability rules. While maintaining technical fluency will be important, demand for soft skills continues to accelerate. So industry experts and organizational partners all agree that this needs to be a top focus for talent development. So you'll see what are the top priorities for learning and development programs, how to train for soft skills. So again, as you're presenting, sharing information, how to train for soft skills, consistent, valuable global training, delivering insights on internal skill gaps. This goes into being able to measure what you're training, measuring your feedback. And so we'll talk about some of those tools that you have to also be able to share as you're sharing information on your strategy for developing and delivering all of your training and support of your staff. And obviously how to access skill competencies, right? We need to measure where people are at. We need to meet them where they're at. We need to know, out of all of my staff, they're obviously all going to be different in terms of the skills that they have. How do I measure where they're at today? And then what can I do to bring interventions to the table, right? Interventions meaning what courses can I assign to develop to address those gaps? And of course, understanding the impact of technology and the folks that we are training, and making sure that it's easy to access, that it's accessible 24/7. They can pull it up on any device, cell phones, laptops, etc., as we've talked about. So talent developers have quite a diverse portfolio of resources to be able to address the needs of the multi-generational workforce with an increased dependence on online learning solutions. So you'll see that in top 3 online learning industry trends for talent developers, micro learning, which is obviously short courses addressing specific items. Those of you that have already been working with CypherWorx will already know you have the ability to create an unlimited number of short courses, online courses, resources, etc., that are easily accessible within the catalog. So you can absolutely address that need. 46% just-in-time learning, employee experience with engaging content, 46%. You'll see that what learning resources do you use to train employees? Let's take a look at this. So you'll see that up top is in-house instructor-led classes. Number 2, online training, e-learning created in-house. So one thing that's important here to mention in your marketing and communication with all of those stakeholders is understanding that the CypherWorx team has built the system so that you can track and manage all of those in-house instructor-led courses. You'll also find that there's online courses that support those in-house instructors. So we're really pleased to be able to share those versions with you as well. So we've got your bases covered. So online learning, e-learning that's created in-house. Those are the 2 top tools that are being used. And then obviously you have the opportunity, number 3, online training, e-learning that's an external provider. So obviously you can have these courses if there's a huge catalog of over 2,000 courses that are available. But you also have the ability, I should mention here, to also even track additional courses, or if you have a provider that has a specific course, you can actually include that in your CypherWorx learning management system so that you have everything all in one place. It's great to have these wonderful different training modalities and so forth, but obviously you need to track and manage all of those pieces. So as companies are growing, they're dedicating more budget to these scalable online learning solutions that really are designed to meet the ever-growing skill demands, like those soft skills, for example. So having a robust learning management system in place with the breadth of training that you need is really critical. And as we saw from the data, it's here to stay, and is really one of the things that I've seen is the quality of training has really increased dramatically since I started with CypherWorx over 10 years ago and working with all of these programs across the country. So what we're finding is talent development professionals are really continuing to explore the best ways to measure the effectiveness of the learning. So you can access tools within the learning management system like assessments, surveys, robust reporting. Today, most talent professionals measure success based on qualitative feedback on in-classroom programs and quantitative data that's based upon engagement with digital learning. In the near future, they're going to want to demonstrate the success of learning programs in terms of team metrics and retention. So as I'm sure everyone on the call understands, the most effective way to deliver training and professional development is to offer this in a blended format, right? So offering online training courses for those topics, and then a face-to-face opportunity. So again, CypherWorx tool is going to allow you to do those types of things, take advantage of learning paths, and again, surveys, assessments, etc., to really do a in-depth process of not only where my learners are in terms of their professional development, but what we can prescribe to those learners to fill in those skill gaps. So continuing on with the trends in talent development, you'll see that the training ranks high amongst the 15,000 plus US workers surveyed. So this is across any industry. You'll see that 57% of US workers want to update their skills. 48% would consider switching their jobs to do it. 71% say job training and development increase their job satisfaction. 61% say upskilling opportunities are an important reason to stay at their job. So you'll see that this, the source of this is the American Upskilling Study, Employee Empowering Workers for the Jobs of Tomorrow. So again, if you would like a copy of these, this PowerPoint deck, please put your information in the chat. We'll make sure that you get a copy of this if it will be helpful for what you're trying to do. So as an employer, you want to attract and retain the best talent possible. So it's not just about what the company needs in potential employees. The organization has to offer something that the employees desire in return. Professional development is a comparatively inexpensive benefit that many individuals want, and more importantly, expect from their employers, especially the new generation that is coming through. That is something that they expect, that they're going to have access to high quality learning and that meets them right where they're at. So learning and development programs can be a very appealing benefit as folks are going through that recruiting process. And in fact, skills training is one of the top perks younger workers look for in a new job. And so according to this 2021 Gallup survey that was conducted on behalf of Amazon, in the survey, 66% of workers that are aged 18 to 24 ranked learning new skills as the third most important perk when evaluating new job opportunities. And this was behind only health insurance and disability benefits. So it's critical for organizations to reinvest in their employee development. In a 2012 Harvard Business Review article, researchers wrote that people who are developing their abilities are likely to believe in their potential for future growth. So that alone is reason enough to make sure that we're doubling down on our investment in developing people. And you want that growth to stay in your company. You might think that paying for an employee's skill development means that they'll take what they learn off to another company on your dime. But in fact, the research has shown just the opposite. Employees are more likely to want to stay and not be absent when their employees invest in their education. So this is research telling us this. To me, this is one of the most important statements here, that employees are more likely to want to stay and not be absent when their employees are investing in their education. So that is a critical piece of information. So one of the fun sayings that I heard many years ago that really stuck in my head is a manager once asked a director, well, what if I put all this effort into training my employees and then they leave? And that experienced wizened director said, well, what if you don't train them and they stay? So that really kind of stuck with me as a great lesson about the value of training, and the fact that when you create that culture of learning, again, you get the benefits returned back to you significantly. So these kind of global trends, if you will, are also the same trends that are also in play at early and school age childcare. Even the most impressive professional development program is destined to fail if a participant does not buy into the initiative. They have to want to participate. But there's two pillars of a viable professional development program. Number one, it must offer continual development. I can't provide training courses just right now and expect that sense of training and professional development to carry through for the year. It has to be continual. So a lot of programs that we work with, for example, use the tools to be able to meet folks where they're at, to be able to provide, an example is assigning courses, once a month, once every 2 weeks, taking advantage of learning paths and the credentialing tool to be able to serve up learning where folks need it to address the things that they're working on right now. So number one was offering that continual development. Number two is that it has to allow staffers to be able to determine the pace of their enrichment, which gives them control over their educational path. So you'll see here 75% of childcare providers are currently hiring lead or assistant teachers, 75%. 83% of childcare providers report that it's more difficult to hire staff now than it was in COVID-19 pandemic. You probably don't need a slide to share that with yourself, but I think this is part of kind of your marketing appeal, and this information is important to communicate with folks. Taking a look at this trend, it's pretty important that time, effort, resources need to be spent in this area of developing staff. And 32% here of client childcare providers have abruptly closed classrooms with little notice to parents due to staffing challenges. Interestingly, this actually just happened to a program where I live. This whole program was actually shut down because they simply did not have the staff. So you'll see obviously statistics on child daycare worker tenure. We've shared this in other webinars that we've been offering here too, but we represent this information here, looking at the tenure of childcare workers. So less than a year, 40% wound up leaving their position, and so on. So again, I know everyone is ultimately familiar with that. So over a period of 10 years, the unemployment rate in childcare dipped by more than half. So since 2019, it's fallen even further. So the need has never been more critical here. So one important tool that you can offer is we recommend that you utilize a pre-hire assessment during the interviewing process. Very few organizations typically offer this type of tool, or previously did. An increasing number are. And so that's why we recommend that you use a pre-hire assessment during the interviewing process. So with the CypherWorx assessment tool, you can actually set up this pre-hire assessment that's completely customized to the unique needs of your organization. Or you can also tie it to existing program quality assessments like Likert or the California After School Network, or program quality assessments that are used in your state. So the pre-hire assessment tool allows you to set up a series of competencies for employees in your organization and to address those competencies that you need in a successful candidate. So prospective employees can then answer a series of questions in each of these competency areas that are related to their level of comfort with that question on a rubric. So what you get back from this performance review is really great information and results for each employee and each prospective employee. And you can decide then if you want to move them forward in your interview process. And the neat thing is that if you ultimately do hire that employee or that prospective employee, they can then be auto-assigned training courses to address those specific gap areas once they've actually been hired. So already in this, before they've even been hired on, they're in the interview process, you're already communicating, you're already signaling to those prospective employees that you have a culture and expectation of continuous learning. And as we saw from the data, that's exactly what folks are looking for. So you can also offer as a recruiting tool the ability, for example, to say earn their Child Development Associate certificate. So employees are, again, looking for opportunities for growth. So with the CypherWorx catalog of training, you could offer access to all of the training courses employees need to receive their CDA, for example, or to access those critical soft skills and compliance training. So I'm going to click out to this link just to give you a quick example here. So again, as a recruiting tool, as an additional benefit or perk to your existing staff, you have the ability to offer a course like the 120 hours needed to get their Child Development Associate certificate. And so what you'll see is that as I start this course, I'll be able to see all of the different areas of what I'm going to be trained on, what the process is going to look like. And again, these courses are designed to be fully mobile accessible. So again, you're meeting employees right where their point of need is. So if they're in the classroom, they have a break, maybe they're grabbing a sandwich and they want to knock out a half an hour of professional development, they can open up their cell phone or tablet and go ahead and launch their course. And the way that the team has designed these courses is, I think, really helpful for learners. The fact that I can see my progress, I can see what's coming up here, but you'll notice that I also can't skip ahead. We have a prescribed way that we want to be able to deliver this training, and you'll find that the training has all kinds of information. The CDA courses, for example, will start off with all kinds of great information on how do I apply? What is this? What are the steps that I need to go through to actually get and qualify to get my Child Development Associate certificate? And then once you're in the courses, you'll find that there is a tremendous amount of interactivity. And the team's done a great job of addressing the fact that there are different types of learners. And one of the things that I find really important in online training is that individuals can go at their own pace and when they're ready to learn. Not all the time am I going to be ready to learn at 9 o'clock in the morning, on a Saturday or, Friday afternoon after I've gone through a long work week. So you'll see that there's interactivity within the courses. There's going to be feedback, questions that I need to answer, learning checks. There may be videos, that type of thing as individuals go through the course. There'll be text to read, questions to answer. And then, of course, at the end of every course, you'll find that there's typically downloadable resources that folks can use immediately right within their program. But you'll also find that there's a quiz at the end. So once they successfully pass that quiz, they will get their certificates. And it's been an interesting thing to witness over the years that those programs that have a culture of learning and individuals are getting their certificates, there's definitely a source of pride. And so a lot of successful programs, their people are posting up their certificates of training completion, maybe on bulletin boards and so forth. And so parents sometimes come in and see that as they're coming in. So they're really seeing, wow, this is a program that is dedicated to constantly training and making sure that the folks that are caring for our kiddos are really up to date with the latest and greatest in development. So we can prepare our kids best for the future and of course provide a quality experience for them. All right, so the next thing is just addressing the opportunity for soft skills and required training. So with CypherWorx, you have the ability to offer existing and new staff access to all of the content that employees need to receive their required state hours for early childhood or for school-age childcare. So school-age childcare is included in the childcare catalog, as well as the CDA, but all of the soft skills and also compliance training and so forth. So I'm just going to take you to this, the catalog here, and you will see that there's a whole section not only on the CDA and childcare catalog, but I also want to point out to you the professional development and safety catalogs as well. So you'll see under the professional development and safety catalog, this is full of soft skills training, from anything from ethics to communication, diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's a number of courses on communication, conflict resolution, how do I correct employee behavior, even things like interviewing skills, decision-making, quality management. So not only are you preparing those frontline folks, but you also have the opportunity, you have to be training and preparing all of your management staff as well. So I will also mention here, obviously, of your safety and compliance type training. So it's bloodborne pathogens. Maybe it's safe driving of a motor vehicle, if you have that in your program. Slips, trips, and falls, those types of things. So the breadth of the catalog here is quite significant. Again, if you are interested in getting a copy of this, you can actually access this right from the CypherWorx website if you'd like a copy of that catalog if you don't have that already, or you can put your information in the chat and we're happy to share that with you. So when you have the opportunity from the marketing perspective, looking at the depth and the breadth of the training, being able to deliver this training again on any device, and then be able to track that individual progress and your adherence to compliance all come together to provide several things. So one is that you've established a culture and expectation of growth and development. You've shown staff and potential new hires that you're supporting and developing them. You as an organization care about them. It's important. Their development is important to the success of the program. So you accomplish the goal of letting them know, letting them take charge of the development, and also on their own time and their own speed, which we saw in the data is important. So again, many of the top organizations that we see that are really beating the odds of turnover rates and talking about are really talking about training on a regular basis. And again, this starts before an employee is even brought on board in that pre-hire process, and really communicating with them, what are we doing differently than, say the program across the street? This is, again, a very low cost benefit that only benefits the entire organization, and more importantly, the experience of the children in our care. So you can bet that the learning hours and statistics that come out of one of these top programs are really included in all of the recruiting conversations, their parent conversations, their communications with schools. I had just yesterday, as a matter of fact, I had a client ask for some assistance with getting some reporting. They're actually going to present to the board of directors, and being able to go in and show all of that information of the impact of learning where they're meeting people in their staff is really helpful. And so you have access to that information right at your fingertips. And as I mentioned, individuals oftentimes will post their learning certificates. So again, parents and prospective employees will actually see those as they enter the classroom location, and they will be able to see that information. And again, the reporting statistics are very easy to get, and it's great information to share with your parents, students, schools, and any other interested parties. So let's move on to surveys. So another thing that our learning consultants often recommend is to start with surveying your team. So you can survey your managers, your supervisors, your employees as to where they see their training needs, both by department and by individual. So the survey tools allows you to survey your whole team or management or subsets of each of those groups to determine where there's a big need for professional development and training, or where you can improve processes, et cetera. So the nice thing here is that the survey is a flexible quantitative research tool that allows administrators to collect data from learners in a really, obviously cost-effective way. So the system allows you to create a survey that's as simple as a standalone topic. You can even make them anonymous if you like, or you can even get creative and combine a survey with a learning path to create a more advanced training scenarios. So for example, we have a number of programs that create a learning path that includes multiple steps, which is really what a learning path is, right? So you can create a learning path with a pre-training survey to get some insight on the learner's initial thoughts on a topic, what their experience and understanding is. Step 2 would be to deliver the training, whether it's online, in person, virtual, or maybe a combination. Maybe it's the blended learning for the particular topic that you're training on. Then the third step might be to do a post-training survey, so that you get direct feedback from the learners on how the training that you delivered influenced their thoughts and their actions and what they're going to be doing moving forward. Now, the other way to use the survey is to repeat that survey at different times of the year. So now you can begin to measure employee attitudes about the training and really see and start to measure your institutional progress. One of the things that I find really interesting is being able to use that survey tool to really find out from your audience what are the possible conclusions that they've reached from the training. What do they want? And so some of the things that people have been finding is that there is a need for general training across the organization, not just in say child behavior and child development, providing homework support, those types of things. But what they're finding is that I've got employees that really need training on customer service. Maybe they need training on new technology, or they need to be upskilled on maybe Excel or PowerPoint, some of those tools that you may have already taken for granted. And this is something that none of us as managers and talent developers are immune to. You come with your own set of biases and conclusions, but delivering a survey will give you actual information. It's really like a focus group that you are getting that great feedback directly from the folks that you're attempting to train and develop. So another thing you might find is that that your staff identifies, hey, there's additional training or certification options, right? You may find that there's more people than you thought that really want to go to that next level and get a certification. Maybe it's that CBA certification, for example. You may find feedback on succession planning and emerging leader programs, supervisory training, right? So managers, again, need training, and we can't assume that they're all equipped. Everybody's built a little bit differently. And so that's one thing that you may find from your training or from your survey. You might find that folks are really looking for a company-wide training event, maybe a team building event. Maybe they want a more formal career development program, and you can build your training around that. A lot of organizations will set up those various different learning paths for different levels of training. So you might have management level 1, management level 2. And again, this is all providing the staff with a compelling vision of the future. That's one of my favorite sayings because it really kind of breaks down to what is my future going to look like? That's where my motivation is going to come from. And so being able to see a career path, what I can do to continue to upskill and develop myself, engage my brain to be able to provide a better opportunity for myself personally, but also a better opportunity and a better experience for the kiddos in our care. So regular surveying of the team needs are really going to, again, show your employees that you care about them and their growth and result in better professional development for the whole organization. And of course, CypherWorx has you covered here. So another tool here, again, using assessments. This is focusing on self-assessments. So you can utilize the assessment tool for your staff to create self-assessments for employees to really take a look at their own strengths and areas that they need to work on. So again, the assessments here are competency-based and really created, customized by you with a series of questions that are tied to individual training courses. So what this means is it depends on their answers on a rubric-based answer. You can actually auto-assign coursework to improve the areas of opportunity. So each employee ends up with a personalized learning plan after creating an assessment. Years ago, this was really just almost a dream, right? Which is how do we properly assess our staff? And of course, historically, it was oftentimes a very cumbersome process. If you were to deliver an assessment, you collect all of that data, you put that information, maybe in an Excel spreadsheet, and try to design those specific interventions or trainings for those individual people to develop each individual in their learning journey. But now you've got this assessment tool that you can do absolutely that. You create the assessment, you assign the assessment, individuals respond with those questions, and then what comes out at the end is the personalized learning plan, which really is fantastic. And it automates the whole process, right? So in organizations we talk to, typically there may be only one person or a handful, depending on your size, that are even involved in that training. But really being able to understand where those learners are and what they need, that is coming right from their mouths, is incredibly helpful. And again, that's really the hallmark of a lot of the successful programs that are, as I mentioned, kind of beating those statistics. They're not having the quite the level of turnover of other organizations. They're having a higher number of staff that have a higher level of turnover. And of course, that's a tremendous message to be able to share with parents and students and stakeholders, parents and schools and stakeholders. So let's take a look at Learning Path. So I mentioned Learning Path a couple of times, but what this is you can create as many learning paths as you want to. It might depend on the position or the program or the state that you're working in. But a learning path is a selection of courses, discussions, resources, third-party training that's taken, maybe live training. All of these different training elements are gathered together in a single process to allow folks to master a particular subject, maybe complete a credential or a certificate or a program. And it allows you to enroll multiple users in multiple learning activities all at once. So you can imagine this saves you a tremendous amount of time. You set up the learning path once, and you can now assign that learning path for when that learner is ready. So this is a simple but highly powerful method to ensure that all of the tasks within the training process are completed. And the great thing is you also have the ability to quickly pull up a report on your phone or your computer, laptop, what have you, and you can actually see where individuals are, where programs are in terms of completing those learning paths. So why use a learning path? So number one, it creates a more structured training program. And so, we talked earlier about the importance from the survey about how important it is to make sure that folks have an ongoing, consistent training program. So commonly, learning paths are used to add structure to training programs. So when you're rolling out the training to your learners, they give you the ability to control both the order in which the courses get assigned and also the time frame in which the courses become available. So again, this allows you to kind of automate that process of continuing or providing that continuing learning process. Number two, this saves you a lot of administrative time. So from your point of view as an administrator, it's normal for learning paths to be set up well in advance of learners being enrolled so that you can condense that administration time. Again, you set it and forget it, right? So you set it up, and then again, it's consistent from staff member to staff member as well. So what organizations find is everyone's now talking about training. They're talking about what they've learned. They're all on the same page and talking the same language. This is an important step to providing that culture of learning. So once you set the learner off on that path, they're really largely self-sufficient. So your learner finishes one course and then they're automatically added to the next. So there's really no work that's needed from you. Number three now, for the reasons of using a learning path, is you're driving learners to a goal. So one of the things that you'll find is when you create a learning path, you have the opportunity to add a certificate of completion. And again, learners really love and appreciate their certificates. So from the learner's perspective, the learning path really ensures that they're working towards an overall goal. Again, that compelling vision of the future that I talked about. It really keeps them on track and engaged with your course content. So the learning path sequence allows learners to focus on the goal that they're currently working on without being overwhelmed. So the course that they're currently completing is on the one on their dashboard, and that course is within a broader program, but they're just focusing on that learning at the moment. Once they're completed with that, the system automatically serves up the next piece of learning for them. And number four, you can provide for a variety of learning tasks, right? From completing courses to maybe adding a third-party course completion. An example, you might have a requirement in your program that I want a certain number of people to be CPR certified. And so they can take that course off-site from Red Cross or whomever and upload that as part of their learning path. And again, once they've done that, that all becomes a part of your learning management system. It shows up on their transcript. It shows up in reporting. And again, you can ensure compliance with your own standards or your state standards. So there's many different ways learning paths that can be used. Oftentimes they're used for new employee orientation. You may want to have them complete a new employee orientation course that you've created or that you've had CypherWorx create with you. You may want to have them as part of that new employee orientation, access certain policy documents, could be the employee handbook. Where do I find certain information? So that can all be in one new employee orientation learning path. Then you might have a site director or leadership path, and you can have multiple leadership paths as you're developing your existing employees that you think are really suited for leadership positions. You can create a learning path that specifically addresses the skills, that those leaders need. You might have a learning path for job success for specific job skills. You might have one for teacher training. You might create a learning path specifically for that child development associate credential to really bring on and upskill all of your folks. You may create a learning path just for soft skills, and that can be a section of learning that you're working on throughout the year. All right, so credentials. So it's common for organizations to have different training requirements to ensure that their learners are within compliance of those requirements. And oftentimes those are time-based. So a credential is a training type that has two specific criteria that sets it apart. Number one, the learner has to complete its requirements in a period of time, right? So maybe non-harassment training is an example, right? So a new employee comes on board. depending on your state regulations, you may have a certain period of time where that employee needs to take care of some of those compliance courses. But number two, the credential is going to expire and it has to be renewed to maintain. So this is different from learning paths in that the learner is required to complete training in a sequence, but over a specific time. So if your state requirement, for example, is I have to complete this training, say within 2 to 3 weeks of my start of employment, and then that training is going to expire every 2 years, how do you manage that, right? So oftentimes programs will talk to new programs that are managing this through calendars or through Excel spreadsheets and so forth. And of course, that person maybe leaves or turns over, and now where's that information? So it's very easy to get out of compliance if you don't have a system to be able to manage that credential type process. So another example might be CPR certification. So they have to complete the training to become CPR certified. And once that certification is issued, it's valid for 2 years. Then it's up to the individual to complete the training again so that they can maintain that certification. So great thing that the team has built in here now with this credential process is that all of this is automated. So now you will see on the screen here that I have, I need to complete this within 90 days of this example. It's valid for 2 years. But then the system is going to start pinging that individual with emails and notifications and letting them know, hey, you need to go in and retake your CPR certification, and it's time bound. So you might set up those reminders 90 days out, 45 days out, 30 days out, 10 days out, etc., so that it's very clear to them that they need to complete that course. And if it's an online course, for example, I will automatically assign them the course from within the system as well. So CypherWorx system really helps you create these credentials really that are important for the employee's growth and potentially even increased pay. So that's one thing that I'll share with you that organizations have done with that in the past, is they've also tied things like completion of learning paths or certifications or various credentials to their compensation. That's one way to obviously motivate folks to complete their training and to even become a much better asset to the organization. All right, reporting. So this is one of the things that I really love about the system here in particular is the reporting. So there's reporting, there's custom reporting. The team's really done a great job of being able to get data out of the system. And so what you're seeing on the screen is a representation of what would look like for a survey, for example. So you can see all those competencies areas where, or an assessment, excuse me. You can see all the different competency areas where individuals are either over the standard or under the standard or really need that assistance. But you'll be able to see this information in reporting very clearly on what are the individuals that where they need assistance. You can even drill down to the actual question. So what did they respond when asked this particular question? So you can see these detailed reports by individuals, courses, the types of training, etc. And you can also set up custom reports for yourself that can be emailed to various leaders in the organization. You can even set up notifications that show you who has not completed required training so that you can be able to ping them right from that email notification. So one thing that I'll mention here, once again, as you're thinking about marketing this, marketing your training efforts to various stakeholders here, is that working with CypherWorx, CypherWorx is an IASSET accredited provider. So this means that we adhere to the internationally recognized ANSI IASSET standard for continuing education training. And so only accredited providers who have approval from IASSET Commission can award IASSET CEUs. And so on the IASSET website, you'll actually be able to see all of the different colleges, universities, and institutions that accept those continuing education credits. So again, in that recruiting, interviewing process, being able to talk about your dedication to the training program and the fact that folks will be able to get the additional benefit of having continuing education credits towards their certification or degree, I think is a tremendous benefit here. So obviously, one of the things that we're really proud of is the notion of being able to provide this really high quality content with engaging courses that really focus on every type of learner that is there. Again, they get to learn at their own pace. The courses include multiple exams, knowledge checks, other assessments to really assess a learner's competency in the courses that they've just completed. Exams are created and maintained by our subject matter experts and instructional design team so that we can test their competency on these course objectives. And again, accessible where the learners want it. It's easy to access and accessible on any device. So one of the things that you'll find too is that many of the courses include tables that matches their test questions to the content that it covers, giving the learners the opportunity to review any content that they haven't mastered. So again, once they've completed a course, they can always go back, reopen that course, recover any of those items. As I mentioned, many of the courses have downloadable resources right within that course. These are tools that they can use in the classroom right away. And you'll also find that a lot of the courses have those reflection boxes. So just like they were in a live classroom, they're going to be forced to actively engage in the content that we're looking to cover with them. So they'll be able to put in their responses and actively engage in those courses. And again, you'll find that there's learning games and there's drag and drops and other types of things that keep those learners engaged and entertained. It's not the courses of yesteryear. I bring that up because I remember distinctly taking courses 10 years ago were really just recorded PowerPoints, or it might be a recorded video. I can turn on the video and go do the laundry, come back, take the quiz, and hope I pass. We're humans, and that's a natural type of thing. We're all busy people. But obviously, what we want to do is make sure that they have engaging content. We want them to be able to walk away with that knowledge. Now, in the CDA courses and the after-school courses, we've actually performed efficacy studies really to show how effective the courses that we're creating are. And so if you'd like to see any of that data, we're happy to share that with you. But I will share with you that we've also won various awards on the effectiveness of this training because of the forced navigation, the interactivity, the attention to the fact that there are different types of learners. And again, all of the content is mobile friendly, as is the learning content management system. So not only can your employees access the content from anywhere with any device, but also you as talent managers, developers, you can also access the learning management system from any device. So you can be out in the field. You want to assign a training to an individual that you just observed, you can do that right from the palm of your hand. So we've covered a lot of ground here of all of the many of the different things that your CypherWorx system will be able to provide to you. That it also includes a tremendous amount of data that you can now use to market to those groups, right? Those parents, prospective employees, maybe the school districts, maybe a board of directors. So we've covered really a lot of ground today, but I put this slide up here to let you see some of the different things that are available within the system. So one of them happens to be that I'll highlight is this Create a Course tool. I bring this up because you as a program, as a developer, have a tool now within your system where you can create your own custom courses, your own custom online courses. If you did a live training, right, or a virtual training and you recorded that session, you can then, once you've completed that, come in here and use the system to create your own custom online course and then make that part of a learning path. You can also customize your own certificates for the training that you're delivering. And again, now you have a way of finally being able to track and manage not only your online training, but your live and virtual training, as well as any third-party training. So again, if somebody goes off-site to take either that CPR certification course, or they attend a conference, or they attend a session like this and they get a certificate for that, they can actually upload that right within the learning management system. You as an administrator have the ability, of course, to approve or decline that. But if you approve that training, that now becomes a part of their transcript and also is available to you in reporting. So we also talked about the needs of for soft skills training in addition to the immediate training. So we know that this from the statistics that we shared with you today, that getting the managers trained and involved in the training of direct reports are going to help significantly. We saw that the employees want to see that their employee is investing in them and that they're using the various latest in training technology. And making sure that they have the ability to access that training in a variety of different ways that are going to meet them where they're at and as individuals. We also talked about sharing the training statistics, again, with your parents, prospective clients, parents, schools, and any other stakeholders. So some organizations felt after time that they did not even need to market because their reputation got out. That this was a premier place to go start your career in childhood education because this organization is always striving for better. So again, your culture of learning that you are established or are establishing really gets around. And quite frankly, isn't that what a parent or guardian is going to want to hear when selecting a program, is that this program has a great reputation of training and developing people, and they don't have significant turnover. So we've talked about in other webinars about the effect of turnover has on kiddos and the quality of the program. So obviously a variant topic in and of itself. So, if you're a prospective employee and you saw an organization with all of these tools and training courses to help them become better, what would you think about that organization? What we find is that it's obviously very attractive. And again, this gives you the opportunity to market and share not only these statistics, but all of these things that you're doing and making available for your programs in the field. So I hope you find this information helpful, and we hope that you're able to pull some great statistics and knowledge about how the CypherWorx system of professional development and training tools can really make your program even more attractive to all of your audiences. And so obviously we know too that there's a correlation between quality training and providing the highest quality outcomes for the kiddos in our care. So I think that's incredibly important. Thank you for taking the time to listen in today. And again, if you would like a copy of this information, this PowerPoint, please reach out to me directly. I've got my contact information here up on the screen. I'm sorry, I didn't include my phone number here. It's actually 585-545-1562. But I'll share with you best way to reach me obviously is email at stookie@cypherworx.com, or you can go to the link here at the bottom, cypherworx.com/K12. This will take you right to our website and give you information, access to the catalog, etc. I'll also mention that you can access any one of the future webinars, and you can also view any of the previous webinars that have been recorded there for you. So again, thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful day.